Okay. So what did we say? I forgot already. Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Is that it? Zayin Amud Beis. So the Gemara started by bringing that wasn't so simple. Beis Shammai argues, and the Gemara had a long arichas what the drasha Beis Shammai was. Then yesterday's Gemara brought down about Rav Dosa ben Arkinas, that it wasn't really him, but it was his brother Yonas ben Arkinas, that had 300 proofs that Saras Haba should be mutter, like Beis Shammai, but there was a Masorah from Chagai that Saras Haba is also, and that's how the Gemara ended. But a lot of Gemara came agav now, a lot of by the way Gemara, because since he said three things, on Amud Aleph it had said, Meir Ani Alecha Aslai Shemayim V'Oretz Shal Meducha Zu Yashu Chagai Nov, and he said three things. Saras Haba Surah, that's the main thing we wanted to get, and the rest of the parak is now agav. Also he said Amon Moav is my Serani during Shemitah year, which was yesterday's Gemara, and now it said also about accepting Gerim from Karduyin and Talmudim, that there might have been a chash that they were mamzerim, and he testified that there are no mamzerim, that they're not mamzerim. So the Gemara is continuing with that subject, that all of it came in an agav. So we're on Amud Beis on the bottom, 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Abasi, Goy. Always when it says Ovid Kachavim, it's just a censorship that came in because they didn't want to write Goy under the rulership of the countries that they were printing the Gemara. So it says Ovid Kachavim, but it has nothing to do with Avodah Zarah, it has to do with the Goy. So Goy, Nachri. First, it says a very general statement that a guy that gave kedushin to a Jewish woman, he gave her a ring, whatever. So since a guy doesn't have kedushin, it's nothing. It's dvar b'telim. But it says that Yoach Hoshish, maybe he's Jewish, even though he thinks he thinks he's guy and he acts like a guy, and we don't have reason to think that he's Jewish. No, there is reason. Maybe he's from the 10 tribes. And they got assimilated. So we don't know. We don't know if he's a guy. Maybe he's really Jewish. If he's Jewish, so then the kedushin is kedushin. It takes effect. The Gemara is going to talk about also that maybe they're mamzerim. That's going to be also a question. But so far the point is that not necessarily is definitely a guy. Might have been Jewish from descent of the Aseres HaShvatim. Here the Rashi goes into the point. There's going to be somebody's Jewish only if the mother is Jew, or even if the father is a Jew. So Rashi goes into other possibilities, but Tosfos stays clear that only if the mother is Jewish, and we'll see that coming up soon. So the point would be that there might have been goyim that had relations with the Jewish woman of the Aseres HaShvatim, and this guy is really Jewish. He was brought up as a guy, but he might really have Jewish descent. But the Gemara still has a problem, because even if there are some of this problem that was prevalent, but most of them were goyim. Well, called the parish Muba parish. That whenever you have a question if something came in, so parish means that if it came from that place, if something moved out of that place, so you go according to the robe. And here you want to know if there was this person that came to us, this guy that came to a woman to marry her. Is he a goy or a Jewish? We should look at it like he's from the robe, and the robe is goyim. So why have a chash? Why suspect that maybe he's Jewish? The Gemara answers, "B'duchta dekvi," in a place where they are. So here, Tosfos says simply that it means in the place where we knew that there was a big settlement of the Aseres HaShvatim. In those cities, we have to be choshish because they're the rove. Tosfos says very simply that in most places you're right that the goyim are the majority, but in the cities that we know, like the Gemara is going to say in the next line, that there were cities we know that the 10 tribes were exiled to, in Persia. Or a mother, like Morris can say right away. So in those places that we know for a fact that there was the big settlement of Jews, in those places there were more Jews than goyim. And in those places, when he says a guy that married a woman nowadays b'choshish that is from the 10 tribes, it doesn't mean the whole world. It doesn't mean in any place. It doesn't mean in those particular places where they were the rove. Rashi learns a little different. Rashi says that in those places they would be kavua, and therefore called kavua kamet sal mechza. It's considered 50-50 in the place where the suffix was born. But Tosfos says this is not considered kavua, this is considered parish. I'm just saying the terminology we don't have to know for now. But Tosfos learns earlier, simpler, that in those cities there was a rove. The majority were Jews. And if there are Jews that are from the 10 tribes, even though they don't think so, they think they're already some. They think that as far as they know, they're goyim, but it could be that they descend from Jews. That's the pasuk in Malachim where it talks about that the 10 tribes were exiled, and he says where he took them to, where the goyim took the Jews to these cities: Chalach, Chavor, Nahar Gozan, Barei Modai. It says 4 places, and the Gemara translates what they are. Chalach, here it says Chilazon, but they say that the proper gersa should be Chalvan, that the Zion should also be above, and they say that the name is Halwan. I don't know if it's known nowadays, but it is brought down. I saw I have a comment that it was quoted in the Gazette of the Webster's Dictionary. There's a place called Halwan, Holwan, and Chavor is another place. These places I don't know. Chadayev, and Nahar goes on as Ginzik, and Orimada is Chemdan, so we know that the word knows these cities that were the places that the Jews were exiled at the times when the 10 tribes were exiled from Eretz Yisrael 100 years before the destruction of the first temple. And those places have been inhabited by Jews, but they got assimilated and they didn't realize that the people don't know that they're from the Jewish descent. It says over here, it has the neighboring cities, the suburbs of these cities, Chemdan or Nihar. What are these? So it doesn't make a difference to us nowadays. We don't know these places, but us to read the Gemara, Chavoseh Haman, who are those neighboring cities? Amashmuel, Krach Mushchi, Vechitki, Vedumkia. Okay, I don't know what these places are. Anyway, the Gemara said that in the places where there's a chashash that the Goyim might also be Jews, so if one of those Goyim gave Kedushin to a Jewish woman, v'choshish that it might be Kedushin because he might really be Jewish. Not only are we choshish that they're Jews, also it might be Mamzerim also. So there's an issue that besides a guy who has relations with a Jewish woman, the child is Jewish. There's a question: is the child going to be a Jewish mamzer or a Jewish kosher? Means even if he's Jewish, he still might be a mamzer. And this Gemara says Kulan Psul means that the child that's born is going to be a mamzer. Besides being Jewish, a guy is not going to be a mamzer. If he's a guy, he's a guy. He converts. A guy could convert and be very kosher, but a Jew is a mamzer, cannot do anything about it. He's a mamzer. It doesn't help to convert. So Rabbi Yochanan says that these people that were choshish that they're Jewish were also choshish that they're Jewish mamzerim. That was what Rabbi Yochanan said. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who's talking here. Rabbi Yehuda started the whole Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Ravasi, and now he says that later. First, he said his thing over in the name of Ravasi, and Rabbi Yochanan said that it would be Jewish mamzerim, and then he said it over to Shmuel. When I said over this Gemara to Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda first learned by Ravasi, then he went to Shmuel. Amali, so Shmuel told me, Bincha haba min Yisrael is kori bincha, vein bincha haba min hagoya kori bincha el bina. He seems to be arguing, but so far we don't see what he's arguing. Rashi has different pshat, but has to make it easy. I think that he seems to say that only someone born from a Jewish mother is Jewish, but someone who's born from a Gentile woman, even if the father is Jewish, is not Jewish. Which the whole we know that already. But the Gemara is asking, okay, but they are Jewish women. The Gemara still didn't finish. That if the mother is Jewish, even though the father is non-Jewish, so he is Jewish. So we didn't answer the point yet. Why is the point that we said not true? That there might be people that are assimilated that had Jewish mothers, even though a guy had relations with her, that the child's still going to be Jewish. So why are you saying that there's no chance that anybody's Jewish over here? The Gemara answers, Gemiri, the Binta, the Hudara, it's the Ruye, it's the, they had a Masorah, they had a tradition that generation, the first generation of Jews that got assimilated from the 10 tribes, the woman became sterile. The woman, Hashem made a miracle that they shouldn't be able to continue and having all these children being born that are going to be, think that they're goyim, there might even be mamzerim also. So this Gemara, L'chora says so far that they might have been Jews. These goyim, well, we think that the goyim might have been Jews, but the generation, and then a Jewish woman that would have relations with a goy, there is a possibility that the child is going to be a mamzer, according to this opinion. But Hashem made a miracle that those Jews of that generation did not reproduce anymore, and therefore you don't have to be choshish. Shmuel is saying you don't have to be choshish anymore. That even in those cities where there was originally a big population of Jews and they assimilated, you don't have to be choshish that there are still Jews over there, because after the first generation, Hashem made that they shouldn't conceive anymore. The women shouldn't conceive, and they didn't anymore. The descendants didn't continue anymore. L'chora would say, according to this Gemara, there shouldn't be any descendants of the 10 tribes because all the women, they became sterile. And the men, even if they're going to marry to non-Jewish women, they're not going to continue being Jewish anymore. So l'chora, according to this Gemara, it says that the 10 tribes stopped. The other Gemara that talks about that the 10 tribes are going to come back. I don't know what I'm holding it, I'm presenting it as a question. But that's what this Gemara seems to say, that Jewish women of the first generation of the 10 tribes, they became sterile and they didn't reproduce anymore.
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yes, please.
I don't quite understand. How would a woman give birth to a mamzer if she was impregnated by a goy? That's not a mamzer, is it?
Right. So you're saying the halacha. What you're saying is true, la halacha, but it's not so simple in the Gemara. There is an opinion that a goy that had relations with a Jewish woman, the child is going to be Jewish mamzer. But you're right, halachically you're right, that the child is going to be Jewish, but not a mamzer.
Okay.
Right. Okay. There's also goes that in the Rashi seems to say that a goy that a Jewish man that had relations with a goyish woman, also the child might be Jewish, but we don't pass like that. Taisus brings down, and we pass in just to get the halacha over here at least that the Judaism, the Jewishness only goes according to the mother. And also, it's not going to be a mamzer. If a guy had relations with a Jewish woman, the child is going to be a kosher Jew. And if there's a goyish mother, then the child is going to be a goy. And if he converts, then he's completely Jewish. No problem about a mamzer over there. Others have a different version of this Gemara. Not that he said because they became sterile, but because the Chazal declared that they should be considered goyim. How did they do such a thing? If they're really Jewish, how could Chazal make them goyim? There might be such a concept that the Gemara says that yesh koach b'yad chachamim lakadoba min haTorah, that the chachamim have a power to be able to uproot something from the Torah. I'm not sure, but he seems to say over here that they made them goyim even if halachically they would be Jews according to the halacha. Until then, they could make a takana that they should be considered goyim. Shenema b'Hashem bagadu kibanim zarim yoladu. The pasuk is saying that they betrayed God, they committed treason to God, and they gave birth to strange children. So we're saying at Rash that from now on they're going to be considered strange. They're going to be considered foreigners. The children are not going to be considered Jewish anymore because they betrayed Hashem. But of course, it's a Rash. But it comes out 2 points in the Gemara. One is that there's no issue about the descendants of the 10 tribes continuing and might be making problems. It means we don't know that they're Jewish and really they are, and also might be a question of Amzerus because they didn't. Hashem sterilized them. It made that the women shouldn't conceive anymore, and therefore they didn't continue, or that the Chazal declared that they should be considered goyim, which also would need explanation. How technically could they do that? I just threw out a question that if anybody gets an answer, that according to this, if the women did not conceive anymore, so then there shouldn't be any more descendants of the 10 tribes, according to this Gemara, because the men that are continuing to reproduce, they're continuing to reproduce from Gentile women, and then the children are going to be considered goyim.
Wasn't it just at that time? It says that generation.
Yeah, but then it's finished already. One generation that the women don't give birth, so that's it. They're finished. There's no more continuation of the 10 tribes then. So I don't understand this Gemara.
There and then moved to a Jewish place.
If the men would have moved to the other place and then they married Jewish women, if that could be okay. But okay, fine. The Gemara continues.
But they would be mamzerim, no? According to this first shita.
But we don't know like that. We hold just Allah. We hold that the Gemara talks about that they didn't continue anymore. They became sterile or goyim. But the possibility might have a kulon l'psul that the Gentile man that had relations with the Jewish woman might be mamzer, but we don't pass like that. We pass in that a goy that had relations with a Jewish woman, the child is kosher, not a mamzer. Goy v'evra bal basrala v'lat kosher. The Gemara continues.
But the offspring, like Rashi says, that they married the brothers and sisters, and they were completely mamzer. Rashi,
right.
The third, fourth line of the Rashi. He says, Ki Yisrael v'noig b'hem iser mamzeris v'heinloi nizharu b'nasu es ha'choisai v'bitai v'harei mamzerim.
If there'd be regular Jews that they didn't keep the laws and they intermarried with each other, brothers and sisters, then the children would be mamzerim. The Gemara continues. Yosef of Yosef. Back to the sugya about Talmud. We spoke about the city of Talmud. If they're mamzerim, are they Jews, not Jews? So the Gemara talks. Yosef of Yosef acharid Rav Kana of Yosef of Kana kamed Rav Yehuda of Yosef of Kamar. So he had Rav Yosef sitting behind Rav Kana. Rav Kana was sitting before Rav Yehuda. It seems Rav Yehuda was the Rebbe, and he had two Talmidim in front of him, one row of Rav Kana behind that Rav Yosef, and Yosef of Kamar. I think the words would imply Rav Kana is talking, but I can't say for sure. Maybe Rav Yehuda is the one who's talking. But the statement that the Gemara says, "Asid in Yisrael, the Avdi Yom Tova ki Chavi Tam." But the Jews are going to in the future make a celebration when the city of Talmud is going to be destroyed. Why? Because there's a question of Mamzerim over there, and when they're going to be destroyed, it means there's not going to be any more continuation of Mamzerim. The more is the kasha of Acharev, it's already been destroyed. So what does it mean in the future it's going to be destroyed? It's already been destroyed. The Gemara says, Ahi Talmud Havoy, that was not Talmud, it's Talmud, two different cities. And Talmud is the one that's destroyed, and Talmud is not destroyed, and that still has question of Mamzerim over there. Avashiyam Hainu Talmud, Hainu Talmud, Ichpula Yehuda Michpal, Chorv Mehagisa, Osef Mehagisa, Yechorv Mehagisa, Osef Mehagisa. He says that even though it's all the same, it's the same city, Talmud, it's all the same, and even though it seems that's already been destroyed, but even though it was partially destroyed, but the other part of the city was still populated and flourishing, and then with that part of the city destroyed, the other part was flourishing, so it hasn't yet died out yet, and therefore he said that when they're going to be finished, that'll be a celebration that the Mamzerim won't continue anymore. The war continues more about Mamzerim. Yosef Rav Amnuna Kamei de Ula Havi B'Shmaita. Rav Amnuna was sitting before Ula and he was asking questions. The word Havi means to ask, like Avinan Ba. The word Havi means to ask. He was asking, he was saying good questions. He was very successful Talmud, Rav Amnuna. Omar Ma Gavra or Ma Gavra or Ma Guvre Ilav Darpanya Maseh. How great is this man? Like Ula was very impressed with Rav Amnuna in his Torah knowledge. What he said, like the only problem is that he comes from Arpanya. Maseh means Arpanya is the name of a city, which was a problem about Mamzerim, and Maseh means his city. Everything is great about him except for the fact that his city is Harpanya. So Ichsef, Rav Amnuna was embarrassed that he came from such a lineage that seemed to be Mamzerim. Amalei, so Ula asked Rav Amnuna, the Talmud, who he was choshed that he comes from Harpanya, the problem about lineage over there, Kesef Gulgalta Lecha you have to, where do you pay taxes to? Means even though you live in Harpanya, where do you pay taxes? Amalei Lefum Nara, I don't pay to the municipality of Harpanya, I pay to the municipality of the neighboring city, which is Pumnara. So he said, okay, then you're not from there. You came to Pumnara, then you're from the other city, and you don't have this problem that Harpanya is all full of Mamzerim. It's only a neighboring city, but you're already on the border, and you're part of the city of Pumnara over there. There's no chash that they're Mamzerim. My Harpanya was one of the cities over there that was suspect of being Mamzerim, and the Gemara is going to say that it had even the name also hints to the fact that they're Mamzerim. It's a mountain, like a city, that everybody goes there. It means everybody that has problems with their lineage, and therefore they try to get a shidduch in a place where they'll accept them, because they're not accepted, because they're considered Mamzerim. Everyone used to go to the city of Arpanya. Over there, they accepted them. So it's full of Mamzerim. The Masih Satana in Brisa, we learned the reason why it's called Arpanya, or maybe it doesn't say the whole name, but Kol doesn't say the word Har, but Kol Shein Makim Mishpachto V'Shivto and Nifta L'Sham. Whoever didn't know his family and his Shevet, he didn't know how to trace his roots. Means again, we don't know his lineage, so he used to go there, and that's why the lineage over there is very questionable. It's deeper than the grave, deeper than Gehenna. The Gemara is going to say that it's more problematic. It's more problematic, Mamzerus, than even Gehenna. I'm going to redeem them from the grave. I'm going to redeem them from the death. And means that even Gehenna, the Gemara is saying, is possible to get redeemed from. Eventually, even the person has to go to Gehenna, eventually he can get out because he's already been punished. And then he can go on to Gan Eden. But Vilu Psoldidu, less Lutakanta. But when someone has a problem with his lineage, then he never can get cleaned out. If that's his lineage, that's what his essence is. So then he's forever a problem. End of that Gemara. The Gemara ends off the end of the parak. Something about these Mamzerim. Psule de Arpanya, Mishum Psule de Mishon. Psule de Mishon, Mishum Psule de Talmud. Psule de Talmud, Mishum Avdei Shlomo. That the problem, the questionable lineage in a city called Arpanya was because they moved there from the place called Mishon. And Mishon had questionable lineage. The questionable lineage of Mishon came from the city called Talmud, which we're just learning about, that there's questionable Mamzerim over there. And where did the whole thing start from? Avdei Shlomo. Like the Gemara said in yesterday's Gemara, that Avdei Shlomo, they were Goyim, or Avadim, whatever the status would be, and they had relations with Jewish women, and the children that are born from them are these Mamzerim or Goyim, whatever the issue might have been. I don't know what my Chavusa said when he gave the show yesterday, that Avdei Shlomo, I just had a thought. I don't know, I didn't look into it, but you find that Shlomo Melech had many wives. Whatever the reason is, he had many wives. And the question is, like, where are all the children of all those wives? So it could be that that's the Avdei Shlomo, that they gave him the status of shvachot, and they were not a full marriage, and it was only considered a shivcha, whatever. It might be that I'm just questioning it. Maybe the Avdei Shlomo was not just that he had slaves and servants. Maybe he was talking something about his own wives, the Pilakshim, maybe. I'm just throwing that out as a thought. I don't know anything about it. But anyway, the Gemara said yesterday that either Avdei Shlomo, the Gemara says B'nai Shti Yerushalayim, the ones that the Goyim raped when they conquered Yerushalayim, and therefore there might have been goyim over there mixed in, or it might have been mamzerim even. If you hold that a goy that has relations with a goy be'ever that have relations with a Jewish woman, is it a mamzer? That's again we pass that it's not a mamzer. We hold that goy be'ever abal bas Yisrael, the child is not going to be a mamzer. Ama v'hainu damri inchi kaba rabba v'kaba zuta miganda vazil l'shol l'mishol l'tarmud l'mitarmud l'meishan u'mimeishan l'harpanya. Rabba said that they said that that's how the saying goes. There's expression. I guess expression is used in different senses, but the way the mashal starts, the way the expression goes is that there's a big kav. A kav is kind of a measuring utensil. A big kav and a small kav means that there were big problems and small problems. Rashi says over here. What did I see? Rashi over here, Kabarabba, Eifa Gadol, Eifa Katana. They're all problems, means they're all kinds of psulim, big psulim, small psulim. They all go to, the word Meganda means to roll. A big measuring cup and a small measuring cup, they roll and they go from the Sheol, that's the grave, like we said at Gehenna before. And from the Gehenna it goes to Talmud, Talmud to Mishan, Mishan to Arpanya. That was what we said, that's where the Psula Yichus, that there were people that had questionable lineage and they moved around from one city to the next city, and wherever they moved, they made this new problem that now there's questionable mamzerim. That's the end of the sugya. All this came in Agav, a very big side cruise that we came off because it was quoted a page ago that in the name of Chagai, Tzaras Abbas is muter, is a surah, like we said basically at the beginning of the Mishnah, that not only is the erva asa to marry do yibam, but also the co-wife, and that's how the whole parak went. We just found out at the last minute that Beis Shammai argues. And even though there are many proofs to it, and 300 proofs that Tzaras Abbas should be mutter, but if the fact is there's a tradition from Allah Moshe Messinai that the apostles are the apostle, and that's how the Gemara came out before that even though Yonas and Ben Arkinas, he was very strong on the side of Beis Shammai to say that Tzaras Abbas is mutter, but we pass like Basila, and that's the Masorah. Tzaras Abbas is also. So if there's a widow that falls to her brother-in-law and she cannot do yibum because she's a relation, like we said, the 15 women, so not only she, but also the co-wife also. If that's good, we continue the next parak.
Last thing about that saying is it that by the time it got to Harpanya, then there were for sure.
Mamash, a second, as the Rabbi Leslie was talking, it's hard to hear over here. So better say Mamash, 1 second, please.
It's similar to the first mission, which are 15 erevos, but these are the 6 extra.
No, we finished it. These are not the 6. We're going back to the 15. The 6 is no, the 6 are not Sarah. We're talking about the 15. Back to the 15. That the Sarah, by the 6, it's no such case. A marriage is not a marriage, and the brother also wasn't allowed to marry her, and that's the thing. The case that it was only the first mission of the 15, and over there it says Beis Shammai holds that the first, he argues in the first mission. It says Chamesh Esrinoshim sticking right away. Beis Shammai argues, but we don't pass like Beis Shammai. We pass like Beis Hillel. Also like it says in the first mission. Yaakov.
In this last saying that was said, where it went from this place to that place and then ended up in Harpanya. So in the end, Harpanya, there was a definite chashash of the yichus. But before then, is it like things get worse and worse? Is that what they're saying? Like, a big kav and a little kav. Right. We don't know.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But then it goes to there, and it goes to the next one until it ends up in Harpanya, where for sure we say there's no chashash.
Right, Harpanya had problems, and that's why the Gemara a few lines ago said that Ula told Rav Nuna that you're great, but Harpanya is the problem. You come from such a lineage until he found out that he was on a borderline, and over there he really lived in Pumnara. But right, Harpanya was a place of Amzerim. Nowadays, this doesn't have any relevance. No Harpanya, no Meshan, no Talmud, nothing. But the question will be how to apply it nowadays. If there's a place that there's a Chash Mamzerim, because people are intermarrying in a way that if there's one issue was goyim, and the other issue is going to be about the lineage. If they're marrying people that are apostle to them in a way, there'd be a union of a chai v'kares, and it makes the child a mamzer. So how to deal with that? In general, not going into the sugya because I don't know it, but in general, the lacha is suffix mamzer is mutter. If there's a suffix, so then suffix mamzer is mutter, and it's even on a definite. The Gemara says lasad lavo, Hashem is not going to reveal. Eliyahu Navi is going to come and say a lot of things that the facts that we didn't know about. Over there it does say that if there's a goy there's the goyim that are mixed into Am Yisrael, and we think that the Jewish really are not, so they're going to be exposed. That these are goyim, they're not part of Am Yisrael, and there might be Jews that are someplace in the Congo that we don't know and thinks that they're Jewish for 20 generations already, but Hashem will bring out all the Jews. But that's as far as goyim and Jews. But as far as mamzerim, so it says suffix mamzer is mutter, not only because we don't know, but a suffix mamzer inherently becomes mutter. Hashem only answered mamzerim if they're definite, and therefore if there's a suffix mamzer, so it is going to be mutter. But if somebody knows about mamzerim, then they are supposed to reveal them, that they should be known that they're mamzerim. They should marry the woman that they're allowed to, and they could live a happy life and everything, and have children and the allowed Yerushalayim and mitzvahs. But they have to know their lineage, that they're limited who they're allowed to marry. Theoretically, there's also a way how a mamzer could get his descendants to become kosher, but that's a little bit more complicated than we're learning now. So the whole study came in as a side cruise. The whole daf has been extra credit, and now we're back to yevamos perek beis. So Ketzad, so really we learned this already. I'll have a small chart, as we said after Shabbos, not too much, not well prepared, but just put on a small. Is that showing? Probably not. 1 second. Here it is. So I just made a different color code over here just to show the order of things that happened. And these are coming mishnayos. We're going to have to know also the order that it happened. So the order is going to be first the blue, and then the orange, and then the whatever that is, pink. So first there were two brothers married to two sisters. I should have made them, not sisters, not sisters over here. Oh yes, sisters. She was an Arab. This one I didn't color everything the regular colors we had over here. But there were two brothers. One of them died. Oh, I'm making a mistake. No sisters over here. No, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I made a mistake by saying that I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake, in other words. The chart is good. There were two brothers married to two women, not related. Everything was kosher. One brother died, and now the second thing that happened before as we noticed that the orange goes before the pink. So there was a third brother that was born. Again, two brothers, and one had a wife. He died, and then before anything was done, a third brother was born. This new brother to that widow is a Eshes Achiv Shaloi Ba'olamo. He never saw that brother. He was born after the brother died. And when he was born, he met his sister-in-law as a widow. She was not yet taken by the other brother. Let's say Reuben, Shimon, Levi, the first one, second one, third one. So when he was born, she was still a widow. She was still known as the widow of Reuben, the first brother.
She was still a Shemer Sil.
Right. So and then, and therefore she's asatim. At that point, she's asatim. And then subsequently, after he was born, so then his brother Shimon did yibum to her, and he has two wives. He had another wife, and he did yibum, and then he died. So now both wives would fall to this remaining brother, but that's called even though he did see Shimon, he lived at the same time as Shimon. He only died after was born after Reuben was died, but he didn't. He was born before Shimon died. Still, he could not marry this woman because she's historically since he was not allowed to marry her from the Yibum, from the Zika of Reuben that died because he was never in the same world. So she forever remains sister-in-law, sister-in-law that he was not allowed to marry. And therefore, even though now, during his lifetime, his brother did Yibum, Shimon did Yibum, and then he died, he can never marry that woman. And also, the Tzara, since she's an Erva, she becomes an Erva to him, because she's Eshes Achiv Shaloi from the first marriage. And therefore, he cannot marry not her, and also not the Tzara, because she's the Tzara's Erva. The Gemara is going to later on, this Mishnah, that's all it's going to say. Later on, the next Mishnah, which we had a little bit of background about this already, Reb Shimon, that if the second brother had done Yibum before the third brother was born, if it would have been the opposite order, that the pink went before the orange, that when he did first Yibum, and then the Levi was born, so when he was born, he didn't find her as a widow of Reuven. He found her as being a wife of Shimon. So then that's going to be issue later on in the next Mishnah. That's going to be a Machlokes case, which we touched upon once upon a time. But tonight's Mishnah is not going to go so far. It's talking about the regular case everybody agrees to, that if, when the third brother was born, he met his sister-in-law as being the widow of the first brother, then surely it's going to be considered Eshes Achiv Shaloi Ba'olamo. And even if subsequently the second brother married her and then died, he can't do Yibum to her because she's the historic one. She's the old Eshes Achiv Shaloi Ba'olamo, because she was known as the widow of the first brother. That's going to be our Mishnah. To see the Mishnah inside. What's the case? It means we're going back to the first Mishnah. The Mishnah before on the Abbez over there, it said there's such a case called Eshes Achiv Shaloi Ba'olamo, the brother's wife that was not in the same world. What is that? There were two brothers and one of them died. And then a third brother was born. And then the second brother did Yibum to that widow. Means when the third brother was born, he found her as a widow before the Yibum. And then Umeis, and then the second brother died. So the din is that this third brother cannot do Yibum to that original Eishes Achav Shelo Yibum Lamo. And he has, even though he has another wife, this Shimon has a second wife also. So she's a Tzara Serva. The first wife, the one we'll put on the chart in a second. It's the first one that was originally the widow. She's the one who cannot be married to Yibum because she was the brother's wife that was not in the same, the two brothers were not in the same world. And the other wife, the Shimon's wife, she also doesn't do Yibum because she's the co-wife of the first wife. Just to see that in the Mishnah, on the chart a second. This is the first one. This is the first wife. This is Rishon, and this is Shnia. The first wife cannot marry the third brother because Eish Achav Shelo Yibum Lamo. And the Shnia, the second wife, the wife of Shimon, she cannot do Yibum because she's a Tzara Serva. She's a co-wife, since this Shimon had two wives. There is his first wife, and then also he did Yibum to his brother's wife. And then when he dies, none of them could go do Yibum to the third brother because the Rishona is Eishes Achav Shelo Yibum Lamo, and the Shnia is a Tzara Serva. The Mishnah ends off that if he did not do a full Yibum, he just this marriage was not a full Yibum, just was a Ma'amar, which is a Kedushin D'Rabbanan. So then his Shimon's original wife is really Chayiv in Yibum. You can't have the marriage D'Rabbanan, which makes her a co-wife to a Tzara. That can't stop the Yichiv Yibum Midaraisa. There's a Yibum over here that's supposed to be taking place, and on the Raisa level, there is no co-wife that's an erva. So therefore, you have to take all the precautions. Means you have to take care of the Raisa to do Yibum. You have to take care of the Rabbanan that they can't do Yibum. So you do Chalitza. Chalitza takes care of everything. They'll do Chalitza to this woman. So on the tzad that she is considered a co-wife, he didn't do any Aveira by marrying her. He can't marry her because she is considered a Tzara Serva. Tzara Serva is Asa. But with the Raisa, she's not a co-wife and she would be Chayiv Yibum. So you have to do something. So that's why you have to do at least Chalitza. You can't let him go for free. So we had the concepts before, and now it's coming to life again in the Mishnah, and now we continue the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman, Mandatani Rishon lo mishtabish, Mandatani Shnia lo mishtabish. There were two Gersos in the Mishnah. Who's called the Rishon, who's called the Shnia? Of these two women, which one is called the first, which one is called the second? We read the Mishnah that the first one, this one on the right, all the way, the Reuben's wife, the original one who started the problem, who died first, she's the one who's called the first wife, and she's the one who's the erva to Levi, because Eishes Achav Shelo Yibum Lamo, she wasn't in this, these two brothers were not in the same world. And the second one, the wife of Shimon, she's called Shnia. She's called the second. That makes sense. But the Gemara is going to say there was the opposite. There was a brisa or a different gears in the Mishnah, that called Reuven's wife the second, and she's called the first. And that the Gemara is going to explain in what sense could you call her the second? Why is she the second? Why is she the first? That's what the Gemara is going to explain. So that's what the Gemara starts off. So to see the words over here, Rav Nachman said, whoever has the girsa that Rishona is the one who's the erva is not making a mistake. And if you have a girsa that the second one is the erva, it's also not a mistake. And the Gemara continues on Amud Beis. She's the one who felt Yibum. She's the one who felt Yibum first. Before this one means the first wife, she felt Yibum from the first husband. Let's put on the chart again, if that's okay. I'm not making everybody dizzy back and forth. That she's the one who felt Yibum first. Her husband died first, and she felt Yibum first. The second one is only falling Yibum secondly because her husband died later. That's the reason to call this one first, this one second. What's the reason to call it the opposite? To see the Gemara inside. To call that Reuben's wife and the second one is not a mistake. My Shnia Linasuin. The one who was married second. That the Gemara doesn't have a problem with. It doesn't seem to make sense. We'll see that on the chart. The Gemara seems to say that this Reuben was married second to this Shimon. She was a second wife, which we put out. That's how we drew it really, that this one, Shimon had a wife, and then he got a second wife by doing Yibum. But the Gemara says that's not necessarily true. The Gemara isn't asking a second. It's not necessarily true because, for argument's sake, it could be that he married her later. It could be that his brother died, then he did, and then the third brother was born. He did Yibum, and then he took a second wife. It doesn't have to be that the one that felt Yibum was the second wife. It could be that Shimon had only her. Then later on, he took another wife, and she's called the Shnia. So what sense is there to call this Reuven's wife, to call her the Shnia? That's the Gemara's question. And the Gemara is going to answer that she would make sense. Second line, Mandatani Shnia lo Mishtabish, my Shnia Lenesuin. What does Shnia mean? That she was married second. But the Gemara says not necessarily. Milo Askinan the Yevim Vach Kachanas. Could it not be that Shimon first he did Yibum to his brother's wife, and that's the one he married first, and then he married a second woman, an outsider. So there's no difference halachically in these cases if who would have been married first. That's not a reason to call her Shnia, that she was not married second. She could have been married first to Shimon. Alamai Shnia ben Nesuin. Rashi says that means that she was married twice, because first she was married to Reuben, and then she was married to Shimon through Yibum. That's why she's called Shnia. End of the Gemara. Why is that? That's just the question of how to call the women, how to identify them. Who's the first? Who's the second? But we got the story that the story we got, no matter what you call them, first or second, the story is the same story. That if there was the Eish Zachav Shel Hoyi Balomo, and then she got married to another brother, she forever remains Eish Zachav Shel Hoyi Balomo of Levi, and she never could marry him. The Gemara goes into the sugi now. What's the source for all this? Let's go back to the Mishnah. Where do we know that there's such an erva that he cannot do yibum to the wife of a brother that he never saw? If he never saw the brother, he was born after the brother died, there's no yibum. Where does it come from? What's the source of that halacha? The main issue is going to be from the word yeshvu. The fact that they sat together. We don't even need the word yachdav. The Gemara is not even dashing the word yachdav. The pasuk does say but the Gemara is not dashing the word yachdav. That's going to be coming up now as a side issue. We'll put that even in parentheses. The Gemara is going to start about what is yachdav coming to tell you, but that's a side point. All the Gemara needs, we can even put the yachdav over here in parentheses. This yachdav is not part of our drasha over here. We just want yeshu yeshiva. They sit together. If two brothers, they lived. And that, if the two brothers lived, that's another way of saying that they saw each other. If they didn't see each other, it's not called yeshu achim. As far as we're concerned, we can stop for the night. That's all we're going to do about But now the Gemara is going to go on to Darshan Yachtav, which also is it's not mamash a side subject because it's Yibum, it's yevamos, it's yevamos in the parsha of Yibum. But it's not relevant to our sugi right now. But we're going on the cruise. Yachtav. What do you learn from the word Yachtav? So, extra word in the Torah. Kiesh Wachim. We could have said if two brothers are living and one of them dies, so the widow should marry her husband's brother. Why does it say Yachtav? The two brothers were sitting together. What's this together? So the Gemara has a drash. Miyuchadim ben Achla. Try to highlight that. Miyuchadim ben Achla means, this is from the word Yachtav over here. Yachtav tells us Miyuchadim ben Achla, that both of them are unified in inheritance. That both of them are inheriting brothers. Which means Pratla Achim Mina'im. Only this comes to exclude that brothers that we talk about by Yibum means that they have a common father. If they have a common mother, there's no Yibum. If the whole din of Yibum, that one brother dies without children, so his brother should marry the live brother, the surviving brother should marry the widow of his deceased brother, is only talking about brothers that have a common father. But brothers that have a common mother, that's not the point. There's no Yibum on Achiv min Ha'im. A brother from a common mother, a maternal brother, is not in the parsha of Yibum. There's no such Yibum. Rabbi Omar, Achim min Ha'ab Yalav Achva Mibnei Yaakov. He says another drasha for the same point. It means we're talking about, maybe I should take this out, just not to get confused. Miyuchadim ben Achla is not our point now. That's to learn out. Just to say, well, what do we learn out? We learn out. That's the way you learn it out. But what you're learning out is Prat La'achim min Ha'im. That teaches us that brothers that are only related through a common mother, that's not the brothers that the Yibum is done. Rabbi Omar, that we have a different source for that. You don't need to have a different source. Achim min Ha'ab Yalef Achua Mibnei Yaakov. Achva. The same brother. It says brotherhood. It's not the word in the Torah doesn't say achva, it's going to say achim, but it's going to be Gezer Shava that by Bnei Yaakov, by the children of Yaakov, the 10 tribes over there, it also says the word achim, and we're going to learn out that that's the kind of brothers that the 10 tribes, they had a common father, they didn't have common mothers because there was there was Rachel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah. They weren't the common mothers, they were common father. So just like over there, the brotherhood was because they had a common father, but paternal brothers. So too, when we say the achim that we talk about by Yibum is also that have a common father. Just like over there, Rashi brings the pasuk, just to see Rashi where he says the pasuk over here. Shnei Masar Achim b'nei Avinu. Here it says Keishu Achim. This is one pasuk. Keishu Achim Yachdav. That's the pasuk by Yibum, and by the children of Yaakov it says we are 12 brothers, the sons of our father. So over there it means that they had a common father because they didn't have a common mother. So too when it says Achim by Yibum, it means a common father. So we have two drushes for the same thing. One of them darshan, first the Gemara darshan from the word Yachdav, that they have common inheritance, that they could inherit from each other. If one of them dies, the other one inherits him. So that would mean only by the paternal brothers. And Rabbah said a different drasha for the same point. That's going to be the fact that it says Achim over here, and it says Achim by the children of the 10 tribes. So the Gemara says, no, that's the only thing. You're coming because it says the word Achim, and you're learning Gzera Shava link. There's another place where it says the word Achim, Ach over there, and over there it doesn't only mean paternal brothers. Over there it's also maternal brothers, even if they have only a common mother. Over there it's talking about all the kinds of erva, all the kinds of relationships that brothers are considered related as far as erva, and they're not allowed to marry each other's wives, let's say, like a whole brother, sister, and these things, a brother's wife, I'm sorry. So even if the brother's only from a common mother. So learn out, if anything, you want to learn out Gzera Shava. So why say dafka if the common father, even the common mother is enough, like you see by erva. The Gemara answers, done in Achim, ben done in Achim achicha. Over there, like Erbas Eishes Achicha, by the word it doesn't say Achim, but here it says, as Rashi being done, Erbas Eishes Achicha. It doesn't say the word Achim. It's very similar. It almost says Achim, but it doesn't say brothers. It says your brother. So that's not the same. To have Gzera Shava, the Gemara at this point says to have Gzera Shava, it has to be the exact word, not only the root of the word Ach. It has to be even the prefix, the suffix. It has to be the exact word in order to make Gzera Shava. So it's better to learn out the drasha from Yosef, the brothers of Yosef, because over there it says the word Achim, and also here it says Kieshu Achim, but over here that it says Achicha, it wouldn't be the same drasha. The Gemara is going to question this because the Gzera Shava doesn't have to be so exact. What's the difference if it's Achim or Achicha? It's all the same. There's a place, a famous drasha that the Gemara always quotes, that it makes a Gzera Shava, even though it's mamish not the same word. Even though over there it says the Kohen should return, the Kohen should come, even though it's mamish a different word, but it's the same idea over there. It's talking about coming to check if the nega coming up in probably next week's parsha. So it says that you can make a Gzera Shava even if it's not the same word, as long as it's the same idea. So if the word Vishav and Ba is good enough to make a Gzera Shava, that he returns or that he comes, so surely the word Achim and Achicha can be also darshan as a Gzera Shava. He said Zui Shiva Zui Bia, they're all the same. Shiva and Bia is all the same, and you can make a drasha. So how come not make a drasha by us also and say that brothers are considered brothers even from the common mother? The Gemara answers, if there's nothing else to make a Gzera Shava to, it's the only available Gzera Shava is going to be from a similar word, even though it's not identical, so you may make a Gzera Shava. But if you have a choice, there's two Gzera Shavas to make. One will be to an identical word, one will be to a similar word. So then you go with the identical word, not with the similar. And here that you have a choice, Achim, that it says by Yibum, to learn it out from Achim, that it says by the sons of Yaakov, or to Achicha, that it says by Erva. So Achim is better than Achim Achicha. And therefore, the Gzera Shava remains that it's only considered brothers if it's common father. The Gemara Sakasha, I have a word Achim that doesn't even mean a brother. Why don't you find the relationship that Lot had to Avraham? Over there, it says they're called brothers. Over there, when Avraham was telling Lot, his nephew, that we shouldn't have any fights amongst us, so it says that we're Anashim Achim. Literally, we're brothers. Now, Avraham and Lot were not brothers. Lot's father was Haran, and Haran was Avram's brother. So this was a relationship of an uncle to a nephew, and also it's called Achim. Are you going to say that by Yibum, that an uncle-nephew relationship also is subject to Yibum? It's not true, only brothers. And you even limited it to a paternal brother. But if that's not so true, if you're saying the whole drasha is based on the word Achim, so that you can find out that even uncle is also called Achim. The Gemara answers, it is more reasonable to learn out from Bnei Yaakov than to learn out from the word by Lot, because this is mufna. The word mufna means that it's available, it's vacant, and that's a rule by drashas that it's more of a powerful drasha when the word is extra. If the word is not so extra, so then it's not so available for a drasha. It's already used up. So the Gemara says that this word is extra, the one that it says by Bnei Yaakov. Why is that? It didn't have to say the word achim at all. It could have said that your servants, they're talking to Yosef, they didn't know who he was. They didn't know that they're talking to his brother. He was camouflaged as the viceroy. So over there it says that your servants are 12, the sons of our father. They didn't have to say the word brothers at all. They did say the word achim, but they didn't have to. They could have said Shnei Mosar Avadecha. They didn't have to say achim. They didn't have to say the word that we're brothers. Since it does say, that's considered mufna. So that's why it's better to learn out the drasha of achim from the Bnei Yaakov rather than to learn from Lot and say that even uncle is in the parsha of Yibum. So now the Gemara comes out with a problem because we have two drashas for the same thing. We have one drasha of the word yachdav. That's what we started off. We have the word yachdav to tell you that it has to be brothers from the common father. And now we have a new drasha called achim to learn from Bnei Yaakov. Why do you need two drashas for the same thing? So the Gemara is going to deal with that now. The first one on the line is v'isrich. V'isrich l'michtav achim, v'isrich l'michtav yachdav. We have to have both of these drashas to come to the conclusion that only paternal father brothers do yibum. If it only would have said the word achim, that wouldn't be enough to say that it means brothers, because we might say that even uncle-nephew relationship is also called achim, like we said a second ago. And we said that there was 2 lines ago, we said that it's better to learn out from Bnei Yaakov, because over there it's mufta, it's an extra drasha, which would imply that the drasha from Lot is not extra. So then if you have one drasha with one choice of a drasha where the word is superfluous and the other one is not superfluous, and then you learn out from the superfluous one. But the Gemara says, no, it's not true. That lo mafni, if you're going to say that don't learn from the drasha of Lot because it's not vacant, it's not available, it's not an extra drasha, it's not a superfluous word, lie, afnuye mafni. The word lie means in truth. In truth, it is also extra, it means both of them are available. They're both of the drashas of achim from Bnei Yaakov, we said is extra, it could have left out the whole word. And also the word that it says achim by Lot, over there, you do need the word, you have to say, because that's what Abraham's coming to say. We shouldn't have a fight because we're brothers. There's a brotherly relationship. But the Gemara is still going to say that it's an extra word. In truth, it's also vacant. It's also a superfluous word. Because it would be more simple, not that Abraham should have said that we're brothers. We're not brothers, it's an uncle-nephew. But he should have said we're friends. We're a friend. There's a friendly relationship. Why should we mess it up with a fight? So the fact that it says the word achim is considered an extra word over there also. So back to the choice of which drasha to use to learn out the word of achim that it says by Yibum, either from Bnei Yaakov that it means dafka brothers, paternal brothers, or to learn out from Lot where it means even a uncle-nephew, so we don't know what to do. That's why you have to have the word yachdav. That's why it says the word yachdav, which has something to do with Yerusha. Yerusha means in a way that each one could inherit what does Rashi say over there? Here Rashi says doesn't mean that they inherit each other. Rashi says that they're going to divide the same nachla. Here's Rashi. You're not going to have a case where uncle and a nephew are going to be dividing the same Yerusha. You might have a case of an uncle that might come to inherit his nephew or the nephew the uncle, but you're not going to have a case where they're going to be dividing the same Yerusha. So that's why they're not yachdav. And yachdav means dafka brother is not going to be an uncle-nephew. So that only explains why you have to have the word yachdav, and the word achim wouldn't be good enough. You might have thought that it means also an uncle. So you have to say the word yachdav. But once it says yachdav, why do you have to have the other drasha that it says achim? Because you might have taken it too far. You might have said not only does yachdav mean that they are paternal brothers, you might think that they have to be both on both sides. They have to be a full brother, both from the mother and the father, a common father, common mother, which needs explanation because by Nachla doesn't have that. By Yerusha, it only has to be, goes according to the paternal side, not according to the mother. So why would there be such a havamina? The Gemara will explain in 1 minute. You might have thought in the word yachdav alone that it has to be both so yachad, so together that they should have a common father and a common mother. Tzricha, that's why you have to have the pasuk of achim by Bnei Yaakov over there that they did not have a common mother. They only had a common father. The children of Yaakov didn't have common mothers. But the Gemara says, why is that such a havamina? Why would you think that they have to have a father, both father and mother? Why should you think that? If we know that Yibam has to do with Nachla, Rashi says the point is because it says that when the Yavam marries his deceased brother's wife, he gets the Yerusha. We didn't have that yet in the Gemara. We didn't talk about that, but that's going to be the truth. That when there are many brothers, one of them does Yibum to his brother's wife, he gets the portion of Yerusha of the brother. He's the one who yarshins him. There are no children. That's the case of even there are no children. He's the one who gets the Yerusha. It doesn't go to the rest of the family. So if it depends on Yibum, on Nachla, and Yerusha, so the Gemara would assume that all the halachas go together. And over there, since the issue of Nachla only depends on the common father, why would we have such a thought that it's only the mitzvah of Yibum when there's both a father and a mother, a common father and mother? The Gemara explains, it's true. Since it's such a big novel idea is happening. It's happening as such a novel thing that we're being matir ever. Really, a brother's wife is always usher to marry. It's a chiv koreh. So now that Torah is coming to permit it, so that's a big chiddush. You might think that the chiddush only holds true if it would be both a common father, a full brother, common father and a common mother. And even though it's not so by Nachli, you might think over here, in order to be mutter, to override the erva, it has to be a full-fledged brother, both on the mother's side and the father's side. Kamashmalan, everything depends only on the father's side. That's the end of the parentheses, just to close off the parentheses over here. And that's the end of the sugya. So we'll stop here tonight, even though it goes further, but that's as far as I got to prepare. So just to go over the halachas that we had today, the first Gemara of yesterday's last parak, spoke about what makes somebody Jewish. And even though there might have been a thought, to point to Rashi, might have been a thought over here about a Jew having relations with a non-Jewish woman, that there might have been a thought here that maybe the child is Jewish, but we don't pass like that. Taisus right away doesn't even agree to Rashi, even Mishnah in the Gemara. There was no such statement in the Gemara. The Jewishness is only decided by who the mother is. If the mother is Jewish, then the child is Jewish. If the mother is non-Jewish, the child is non-Jewish. But the issue here would have been that maybe they didn't know that there were Jews over there, and that places where the 10 tribes were relocated in the exile, they might have assimilated, and there were non-Jewish men that had relations with the Jewish woman, and the child born would be Jewish. And even though they think that they're Goyim, they're being raised as Goyim, they might really be Jewish. And there's even a question about them being mamzerim, because this Gemara might have held that non-Jew that has relations with a Jewish woman, the child might be a Jewish mamzer, which wouldn't even help to convert, to get rid of that blemish. But the Gemara comes out that that's not. We paskin first of all that the Judaism, not like Rashi mentions, Judaism is only dependent on the mother, as we said. And as far as being choshesh that happened, that there are Jews going on being assimilated into the Goyim and really the Jews, the Gemara says you don't have to be choshesh for that. The Gemara says one of two reasons: either because Hashem made that generation of women of the 10 tribes should not conceive, and therefore that lineage didn't continue, or they decreed upon them they should be considered Goyim, which needs more explanation. How does that technically work? How could the Chachamim make that they should be considered Goyim? But that's how the Gemara finishes as far as that point. The Gemara continues afterwards about the Mamzerim of Talmud, that there's going to be a celebration where it's going to be destroyed, and even though there was a place that was destroyed called Talmud, either it's a different place, or even though it was partially destroyed, it wasn't completely destroyed, and there was still Mamzerim, and there's going to be a celebration when they'll be finished. The Gemara also, there's a medrash, there's a medrash that says that they also participated in, and this is the Gemara, didn't say in the Gemara, but there's a medrash I've written down that they also participated in the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. They also participated in destroying the Beis HaMikdash, this Talmud or something like that. So there's a celebration when they're going to be destroyed. The Gemara talks about Mamzerim of Harpanya, and there was a Talmud Chacham of Amnuna that would live next to Harpanya, but at the end it came out that he really was paying taxes. He was part of the municipality of Pumnara, so it's not Chash, but people that come from that city, they're suspect of being Mamzerim. And the Gemara says that the reason why it's called Harpanya, Harsha called Ponim L'Sham, or someone doesn't know a Shevet, Ponim L'Sham. And the Gemara says that their issues came from the city called Meshan, who came from Talmud, who came from Avdei Shlomo. And the Gemara says the Mashal about that Kav that's rolling from place to place and making problems wherever it goes. The Mishnah talks about the next parak, which is going back to the first Mishnah of the first parak, and it says that as far as the simple case so far, this Mishnah, the next Mishnah will be a little bit more advanced. But here, if the brother born never saw his deceased brother, so he never could do yibum to that widow. And here the Mishnah talks about that when he came into the world, the third Levi came into the world, he met his sister-in-law as a widow, and that surely everybody agrees that it's and there can't be any yibum. The next Mishnah will talk about if he came in and she was already misyaben to the other brother, he came here and finding her as the Rishon holds maybe over there is going to be, this Mishnah is the Kuli Alma, that there is no such yibum. The Mishnah does end off that if there's Maimar, which is a Kedushin D'Rabbanan, so then there's a Kedushin D'Rabbanan stopping the Tzora, the co-wife of Shimon, that she cannot do yibum because the Kedushin D'Rabbanan is making her to become a Tzora to an Erva. So you do the Eitzah that satisfies all the problems. She does need Chalitza because there's a real Yibum obligation, but you can't do actual Yibum because there's a Kedushin D'Rabbanan standing in the way, make sure it's Tzara Serva. So you do Chalitza, takes care of everything. And the Mishnah spoke about which is the gears, who's called the first, who's called the second. It's just a way of reading it. And the Gemara comes out either way is good. Either the first one that was fell to Yibum first, or the one that was married twice. Yes, the question of how to call it Rishon or Shniya. The Gemara came in for the drush of Eish Zachav Shloi Balomo, and that's simple. That's the answer. That's simple. That's because it says Ki Yeshvu. And that's the end of the sugya, that it says the word Yeshvu, and that means they have to be living at the same time. The word Yachtav, the Gemara goes into a tangent to tell us what the word Yachtav means, and it comes out that it tells you it has to be brothers from the common father in order to do Yibum. The Gemara says there's another drasha, Achim Achim, and then the Gemara says you need both, because you might think that Yachtav might mean that they have to be related both from the father and the mother. That's why it says Achim Achim, to tell you that just like by Yaakov, the only common father that's good enough for Yibum, you don't have to have a common mother either. On the side, we also said there's such a thing as Gezer Shava, even if it's not the common word, but if you have a better choice, so then you do use the common word. That's why it's Achim, not Achicha, that it says by Yerva, and by Lot, even though over there Achim, and also both of them are Mufna, over there means an uncle, but there's no relationship there's no Yidin of Yibum by uncle, because you learn out the word Yachtav, that it has to be that they could divide the same Nachla, which is only brothers and not uncles. End of that sugya, and Hashem will continue from Amr Huna. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you. Hope that it was clear.
Very much.
Thank you. Shavuot tov, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bezrat Hashem, should be a good week for everybody. Thank you. Yashikach. Thank you.